Welcome to the Rines Report with your host, Tristan Blake Rines.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Rines Report here on Tristan Blake Rines, the official YouTube channel for the Rines Report. It is October 30th of the 2019 year. We are 8 weeks through the NFL season, heading into Week 9. It's great to be here. So let's just dive into something that's a little outside the NFL, okay? I feel like we need to address it because it needs to be talked about. All right? The NCAA, based on the headlines, is allowing players to profit off of their likeness. Now, as an avid EA sports game fan, like I play Madden, I played NBA Live when they made NBA Live still, if you haven't checked it out. But I played NBA Live when I was younger. They got the FIFA games. I'm not a big soccer person, but like I see how much fun they are. But NCAA 14, I'm a big fan of that game. Now, could we get another NCAA game back? EA has set out feelers saying, look, as long as this is legit, we want to bring the game back. It means I'm excited. As a fan of collegiate sports games, I'm excited for this, okay? But there's some things we need to consider here in this move. All right, the NCAA Board of Governors is going to allow athletes to profit from their name, their image, and their likeness. That's great. But I think the NCAA still wants to remain in control here. Players are not being paid for labor and by the universities themselves. Okay, that's another thing to consider here. So they're not being paid to play. They'll be paid to have their face on something, use their name on something from private businesses, not the universities themselves. It's a big headline, and we're still, as a whole, feeling this out. We're still relatively unclear how much the NCAA is actually giving here, okay? Like I said, big headline. The headline is, once again, they're allowing players to profit out their name, their likeness, what have you, and their image, Only 2 months ago, the NCAA was basically begging the state of California to not allow players to make money on all three of those terms, on all three of their likeness, their image, and their names. So California was like, well, screw you guys. We're going to let them do it because this is unjust. These players should be able to profit off of their name. It's one of the only industries, I can't even think of another industry that doesn't allow the players, or at least didn't, I suppose, allow the players to make money on themselves. If I was in the NCAA, if I was a college athlete, I wouldn't be able to profit off of this podcast, for perspective, okay? The NCAA would say, look, you're making money on your name, on your likeness, but you are under the banner, you're getting this recognition because you're an athlete, right? Like I could play baseball or something, and that's how they would come down on me, or football, whatever. More than probably not football. I went to Radford University. But California began the pressure. They signed into legislation. More states were considering it. I think most notably Washington State. And the NCAA, it seems like they're trying to get ahead of this. Like I said, still very unclear on what the terms of this really mean. Like, what's the effect here? Okay, how much money can this player make? Is there going to be a restriction on how much these players are going to be able to make, what they're eligible to make, how they're able to make this kind of money? There's still a lot we need to find out. Need to flesh things out. And college administrators are not big fans of this move, okay? This takes money out of university hands and puts it directly into the hands of the players. If a local business, say your hardware store, your local hardware store says, let's use an example here, Jerry Judy from Alabama. Let's say the local Alabama hardware store wants to say, look, we're paying Jerry Judy $5,000 or something to put his face on our billboard and say, hey, come to Pete's Hardware. What does that actually mean as far as the university is considered? Like, that means they're not making money on his picture. That means they're not making money selling, whatever the apparel is with his number on it, without his name on the back, so to speak. So, still a lot of unknown parts here. What is acceptable? What isn't acceptable? And I think this really needs to be considered. We need to keep an eye on this as sports fans. And it did deserve the first 5 minutes of the show. I just wanted to feel that out there. I wanted to say, hey, look, this is a step. This is a stepping stone, but we need to keep eyes on this as sports fans to say, look, we see that the NCAA is making some moves here. We're not sure how to feel about these moves quite yet, but we see the moves are being made. And that's what matters, right? So let's get into the actual NFL stuff. Let's talk about this past trade deadline and all the things that happened around it, right? There's other topics to talk about. Let's talk about first Andy Dalton being benched in the Cincinnati Bengals and the hot mess up there in the orange, black, and white. Okay, look, the Bengals have gone 0-8 this season. That's a big 0-8. Gotta make sure. All right, I wouldn't want to throw out 10 fingers and be like, oh, he's an idiot. Nothing has gone right for the new head coach and Zach Taylor and company. Okay, the defense is a -9 turnover differential. They've only got 6 takeaways on the entire season so far. Like I noted at the beginning of the show, we're 8 weeks through the NFL season, and they're allowing around 435 yards per game. All right, the offense is terrible. 29th in points, 30th in rushing, 9th in passing, and 7th in receiving. Basically, they can throw the ball a lot, they can pick up yards, but they are not sticking it in the end zone. Okay? And they're looking at Andy Dalton saying, look, you're not getting us wins. You're not working here. This isn't working, right? We're looking at the situation. We're going to try something new. And I can't blame them entirely, but Andy Dalton isn't responsible for his blocking assignment where he's getting sacked, and he's not responsible for the wide receivers running routes, and he's responsible to make things work, right? He's responsible to sit back, read defense, throw the ball. They're in the running for the number 1 overall pick this season, likely to be a top 5 pick. And A.J. Green, he said he's coming back. He wasn't holding out. He was dealing with an injury, but he's coming back here shortly. I've seen reports one way or the other on whether or not he's even going to be there after this season. Working on a new deal, but if he doesn't get the deal he wants, then he doesn't want to be there, obviously. According to CBS Sports, Dalton is upset with the time of his benching, and he wanted to be traded, but he feels like they did him dirty because they did it the day of the end of the trade deadline. If they would have announced it 4 days prior, I think they could have shipped him to Chicago or another team that just needed a little bit of a boost at quarterback. Chicago, of course, was that was the rumor mill that the Chicago Bears were going to be looking for a new quarterback to replace Mitch Trubisky. But it is this entire thing, right? This conglomeration, this organization in Cincinnati, the Bengals, it feels like a disorganized mess. The Bengals are going to be starting rookie quarterback Ryan Finley versus a challenging Baltimore defense. So, trial by fire, good luck to you. He wasn't much of a standout or anything remarkable at NC State, but who knows what's going to happen here. I think the Bengals are just trying to kick the wheels on this and say, look, our first-round pick, offensive tackle Jonah Williams, is out, so the protection is not going to be good. So good luck with that, Ryan Finley. A.J. Green, we're pretty sure isn't playing this week, so you got Tyler Boyd, not bad, but everybody else. Tyler Eifert's just been disappointing this year. He's not quite the red zone target of yesteryear, so it just feels disorganized. I feel like Zach Taylor saw the job and was getting the offers and was like, look, Cincinnati, not a bad deal. The ownership loves to stick with like to be very gung-ho, stick by the side of their head coach. This is going to be a good spot for me. If I win a handful of games my first season, we'll transfer to the next year. This is a building process. And I'm not denying that. The Bengals are a team that's always felt like they're a work in progress. I like A.J. Green. I like the veteran Geno Atkins. I think Andy Dalton isn't going to be the biggest difference between you winning and losing games. I don't think Dalton puts you in a position to necessarily lose the game. But I don't think he's making you the outstanding, okay, look, this team is coming in. He's a threat. The guy throws for a ton of yards. Like Joe Mixon hasn't been that successful. But I don't think Andy Dalton necessarily is the problem here. I think he's okay. I just can't imagine Ryan Finley is going to outperform Andy Dalton, and that's my estimate here. But I don't know exactly what they need to do, so I don't blame them for making this move. But if I'm Andy Dalton, I am very, very upset because look, you're a starter. You could probably start at, like I said, Chicago, And the Bengals, instead of, allowing you to seek trades and seek, other options, they sat on their hands and said, we're not really sure because this is a disorganized mess. And I feel bad for Bengals fans because they're the ones who obviously are going to have to deal with it. So let's just keep this tide rolling. The Denver Broncos are the next topic here, okay? The Denver Broncos, it feels like they're starting over in their own way. Flacco, after losing the Indianapolis Colts, they led like that entire game. Adam Vinatieri was struggling. The offense for Indianapolis was kind of sputtering, but Adam Vinatieri, most clutch human in all of sports, sailed like a 43, 50-yard field goal to seal that game for them. Good for them. But Flacco, after the game, said, "We're a 2-6 football team, and we're afraid to go for it." Chris Harris Jr. was on the trade block. Derek Wolf's on the trade block. Look, Joe Flacco, pretty meh, right? He's around that Andy Dalton. Okay, he's good. I think Joey Flacco, like right now, I think Joe Flacco's around that middle of the pack kind of quarterback, right? Maybe not. He's definitely not top 10. He's around that. He's around the 16, maybe 17 mark, right? But John Elway doesn't seem to be happy with his mediocrity. Vic Fangio, first-year head coach, it just doesn't seem to be working. So, Joe Flacco is out a handful of weeks with a neck injury. This team needs its next franchise quarterback. And I think ever since Peyton left, they've been looking for a new franchise quarterback. They had Chris Harris Jr. on the block, Derek Wolf on the trade block. The only player it felt like wasn't being shopped in Denver was Von Miller. For obvious reasons, Von's a future Hall of Famer. He's selling all your jerseys. He's your guy. We're a 2-6 football team. We're afraid to go for it, though. I want to circle back around to that statement. I think Joe Flacco does have a point here. You're not winning a lot of games regardless, so there's not a lot of risk factor in you going for it on fourth down sometimes, right? There's not a lot of risk factor in actually trying to secure a win and not just, we're going to play the clock. We're up by like 10 points, but we're gonna play clock into the second half. We're gonna try to secure the win. Just get out of there with our heads above water. The Broncos in the NFL, it doesn't work that way. You need to be a little ambitious. You need to be willing to go for it on fourth down to secure games. There's nothing wrong with being aggressive. Being too conservative is how teams end up starting 2-6. Being too conservative with a good roster is how you lose players. There's nothing like you look at the Rams, at least they're willing to go for it on fourth down to seal games. Last year against Seattle, big moment, right? They were aggressive, went for it on fourth down, sealed the victory on a quarterback sneak with Jared Goff, right? Being aggressive isn't a bad thing, right? Like you can be overly aggressive and it's like the first series of the game, they're going to go for it on fourth down, blah, blah, and the situation doesn't call for it. But, I mean, there's nothing wrong with being aggressive. Look at this Broncos team. They just don't. They feel very conservative. I think you can very well expect and see and know what you're going to get out of this team. The Broncos are looking for their next quarterback. You got Jake Fromm out of Georgia, Justin Herbert, Jalen Hurts maybe in a later round. You got Joe Burrow, who's playing ridiculous football, probably a Heisman candidate as well. They need a new quarterback. I like Cortland Sutton. I think he's a good wide receiver, young wide receiver out of SMU, having a pretty solid breakout year, right? The defense, Bradley Chubb got hurt, out for the season, right? You can't do anything about an injury. Injuries happen. Von Miller, he's still playing pretty solid football, right? Chris Harris Jr., you keep him, right? He's the cornerstone of that secondary. He's what makes it all work. Derek Wolf, solid, veteran defensive lineman. I don't know how many sacks he's going to get you. I don't know how gigantic of a difference maker he's going to be, but he's not. I think he's about middle of the pack. He's effective, though. I like Derek Wolf. I got nothing against him. I just don't think there's anything special. You know what I mean? Like you see Derek Wolf, and he's like, oh, the dude's got the big tattoos, and he just looks like a freak. But, he's a starter, right? But you need to continue to pile on and make this team better. I think the Broncos are in this weird position of, okay, we have some good assets. Are we going to start over, or are we going to hold on to what we have here? Because we have players that have won Super Bowls, right? We have the Super Bowl 50 MVP, Von Miller, Chris Harris Jr. And I think they're just trying to figure that out. They're testing the water, saying, look, this upcoming offseason, there are going to be changes being made here. John Elway does not seem ready to sit around and be mediocre. He had very early success with Peyton Manning on Manning's last few seasons, but I can't imagine John Elway's looking around at this team and saying, you know what, I got something here. If I'm just an 8-8 GM, I'll last. It'll be fine. I don't think so. I think the Broncos are looking at this team and saying, look, we got to make some changes. Offseason's coming up. Let's stockpile the heck out of some draft picks. Let's improve this roster. Let's get better. And look, we're going to fill up the stands again. That's what the Broncos are looking like they're trying to do. Let's talk about the Houston Texans. And I'm concerned. And if I'm a Texans fan, I'm concerned. As a football fan, looking at this Houston Texans team, I'm concerned. All right, and let me tell you why. Star defensive end J.J. Watt out for the remainder of the season. Tell me if you heard that one before, because it happens almost every season. And I love J.J., and you can't help injuries, but he has very, very quickly become one of the most injury-prone great players in the NFL. And I will not be shocked if he is not a Houston Texan within the next 2 seasons. I understand he's great for the city of Houston. I understand that he's a great team leader. But the thing with the NFL, and I say this a lot, is the best ability you have is availability. And if you're not available, if you're not on the field, if you can't contribute, you're not helping anything, right? The dude's very high priced. He's very good when he's on the field. He's like I said, team captain. But it feels like after these last 4 years, he's just not on the field a lot. Last year, he was on the field a lot, right? Put in good numbers. I think he had, 16 plus sacks, something like that. He won Walter Payton Man of the Year. It was great, right? But the previous, 3 seasons before that, they'd all ended on, IR, or he'd been hurt. This year, again, a torn pectoral, out for the remainder of the season. And here's the thing. I don't like to blame the player because, look, the man gives 155%, right? 199%. The guy's phenomenal. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. I love J.J. Watt. But at the same time, man, is it worth it? I think people are looking at that Seahawks trade. Obviously, hindsight's 2020. But they're looking at the Seahawks trade and saying, man, I think the Seahawks won that trade. Right? Hindsight's 2020. Say what you will. J.J. Watt's a great player, but I will not be surprised if they let him go, right? Is the Texans season turning in the wrong direction? Losing J.J. Watt, big minus, big hurt, right? It's gonna affect your defense. It's gonna affect the way you prepare for games tremendously, right? And they barely overcame the Raiders. Lots of Bill O'Brien wheeling and dealing throughout the year, throughout the offseason, up until the trade deadline. Looks like he's trying to do his best to just keep his job, right? Carlos Hyde pick up, Duke Johnson trade. I think he trade a third-round pick. There's so many running backs out there, man. You don't need to trade a third-round pick to get Duke Johnson, all due respect. Laramie Tunsil, first-round pick, and he stills along with that. And then Garyon Conley. They're shipping out. They shipped out a ton of picks to get Laramie Tunsil's the best pickup they got. Okay, I'll put it that way. Garyon Conley, solid. He was a high pick from the Raiders a few years ago, and he hasn't quite panned out the way they thought at Ohio State. Kenny Stills, solid wide receiver. Nothing against that pickup. Laramie Tunsil, I like the pickup. You needed help on the offensive line. You got it. Carlos Hyde, Duke Johnson. Lamar Miller went down. You got some running backs, right? But it doesn't seem to be working the way they think it will. I should have more faith in this team. You look at this team on paper. You look at the Chargers on paper, and you think, wow, it's a good team. They got a good coach. Bill O'Brien, Vance Joseph. No, not Vance Joseph. Who's the Chargers head coach? Why am I forgetting this all of a sudden? Anthony Lynn, excuse me. You got Bill O'Brien and Anthony Lynn. You got two good coaches. Management's not horrible, I wouldn't say. And then you look at these squads and you're like, why? Why are they just the Chargers especially? Why are they not a playoff contender right now? Why aren't they making Tristan's list of contenders, right? We're going to talk about them later. Something about, I think it could be ownership, maybe management, who knows. But the Texans, I should have more faith in this team to be good, almost great. But for some reason, I just don't. I love Deshaun Watson, and I think he's what makes the offense tick. I love DeAndre Hopkins. I think he's a phenomenal playmaker. And this is a playoff caliber team, mind you. But I just don't feel like they're ready to take any significant leap right now. And maybe the drawback is coaching, right? Maybe Anthony Lynn and Bill O'Brien, right, for the Texans. Maybe they're just not quite the coaching. Maybe they're just not quite the coaches that these teams need, right? They're 5-3 right now, the Houston Texans. The remaining schedule, let's run through it. They got the Jacksonville Jaguars at Jacksonville. And if I tell you this, you believe me or not, they're a good team. Jaguars record, whatever, but they have a good defense. Gardner Minshew plays pretty solid football. I wouldn't say he's bad at all. DJ Chark's playing like a great wide receiver this season. They could lose that game. They got the Baltimore Ravens, probably one of the best teams in the AFC right now. They could probably lose that game. They probably will lose that game. Indianapolis Colts, good coaching, great offensive line. I like the Colts a lot. Jacoby Brissett's playing solid football. He's a mediocre quarterback, but and the defense has gotten better. I like the Justin Houston pickup. They could probably lose to the Colts. Then you got to go play New England, and they've never beaten New England, and New England looks even stronger than they have in the last 5 years right now, even with some offensive dysfunction. By the time they play the Patriots, the offense will probably be better. So imagine they take a loss. That's 4 in a row right there. They played Denver. Denver's not good. We talked about them earlier in the show. They did a win there, right? Tennessee, at Tennessee. Tennessee's so wishy-washy. I could see the Titans winning at home against the Texans, but later in the season, they beat the Titans at home. So they split that series 1-1. And then they got Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay's just kind of messy. Give me the win there. And after all is said and done, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 losses to 2 wins. They could be 7-9 by the end of the season. I think the Texans could be lined up here to have one of the biggest cold streaks in the NFL. They could. But I think they could finish around the 8-8 mark, 9-7. I'd be shocked if they hit the 10-6. And it's just because I look at this lineup and I'm like, look, this offensive line needs work. You lost J.J. Watt. Your secondary still needs help. You lost Tyrann Mathieu from last season. Garyon Conley's not fixing the secondary all by himself. Jonathan Joseph's an older veteran. Man, the Texans are weird. Could they squeak into the playoffs? Yeah, maybe. Sure. Are they going to be a contender? I don't think so. Up until this point, they've been good. I have a lot of optimism. Like, I look at this roster, I'm like, wow. Like, they're only missing a few more things. And, like, that margin between, like, great and, like, pretty good is this close, right? And then there's bad. But you look at this team, man. I just feel like they need work. I feel like they're just missing a few more things. You shore up that offensive line, you get a few more pieces in the offseason, this team gets a lot better. You make some more strides in the defense to have insurance for when J.J. Watt goes down, you get better. You improve the corner situation. You get some good safeties. I like Reed back there, Justin Reed. He's solid, but like he can't play it all by himself. This Texans team is close. They're close. They're good. I think they could hang with almost anybody, right? I don't think they can beat all the good teams, but I don't think they're a bad team. I think they're just a step above that mediocre, okay, they're all right. You know, we expect them to win some games. We don't expect them to do a lot. But they're close to being really good. They're close to great. Deshaun Watson, young MVP candidate, right? Last few weeks, been a little, not as much news, right? But I like him. I like DeAndre Hopkins. I like Kenny Stills. I like Will Fuller when he's playing. So, is the Texans season turning in the wrong direction? In my opinion, it could very quickly turn into a huge cold spell and then them finishing around the 500 mark. So I'm a Texans fan. I'm worried. Keep those things in mind as you watch the Texans play the Jaguars this weekend. Now, the trade deadline came, and it went, I guess. It was pretty uneventful, to be honest. Aqib Talib got traded to the Dolphins, mostly a cap move, I suppose. They took on like his $5 million something contract, and they were like, all right, we're the Dolphins. You know, we're not trying to be good. The Patriots and the Falcons both cut their kickers, so that's not a trade, but whatever. And the Patriots signed Nick Folk, and the Falcons signed Young Hoku. I like him. I like his name. I think he's cool. But I don't know how good of a kicker he's actually going to be. They released Matt Bryant. The Patriots released Mike Nugent. So pretty uneventful. The Bengals benched Andy Dalton for Ryan Finley, which we talked about earlier on in the show. And I guess the only other big thing that happened was Trent Williams ended his holdout with the Redskins, and he reported, but according to Bleacher Report, he doesn't really intend to play, so he's just going to be in the facilities, but he's not going to be doing anything that matters, I guess. Washington's a mess, and they should have traded him. There was so much hype going into this trade deadline, too. We heard murmurs of Jamal Adams getting dealt to possibly the Cowboys. They've been looking for a safety for the last 5 years, it feels like. We heard A.J. Green, whether or not he was going to be dealt, Chris Harris Jr., Derek Wolfe, like I mentioned earlier in the show. Lots of players' names were being thrown around, and, the media, and if you're excited, I love trade deadline stuff. I love free agency. I love the offseason. I love it when teams move and things change, right? Because it brings a whole new mystery to the game, right? But this trade deadline was pretty uneventful. And I feel like myself, as somebody who analyzes the NFL, who looks at the NFL, who talks about the NFL frequently, I just felt underwhelmed. Not going to lie to you guys. We always get excited for these things, and then often we get let down. But sometimes something cool happens. So it just wasn't this year. So post-trade deadline, I don't know if anybody really got much better. I feel like the Patriots and the Falcons, they're hoping these kickers work out better. Nick Folk, Young Hoku, all due respect, I hope they play well. Okay. Trent Williams, I don't know what the situation is. The Redskins are a mess. If you're a Redskins fan, you already knew that. They're bad. Aqib Talib to the Dolphins, okay. Okay, fine, whatever. Like, I don't think it turns their season around. They might win a single game on a pick six by Aqib Talib in like week 14 because who cares? Because Xavier Rhodes is done for the season. If I was Xavier Howard is done for the season. Not surprised by that. If I'm Xavier Howard, I'm like, hey, look, my quad, man, it's really been bugging me. And they MRI him and they give him the X-ray and they're like, well, we don't really see anything wrong. He's like, but it feels really tight and I don't want to risk it. I've been bugging me for like the last few weeks and blah, blah. And they're just like, you know what? Well, I see what you're saying, Xavier. I hear you. You're my friend. You're going to go on IR and we're going to use you next year when you're better and you're good. And the team's a little bit better and we have a quarterback and maybe some offensive linemen and the offense just looks a little bit better. So I see you, Xavier Howard. Yeah. Jalen Ramsey, your back was hurting, right? All right, let's move on to the reoccurring segment. I really enjoy this segment because you get to call out the teams that are bad, that think they're good, and then we get to recognize some really good, talented teams. Okay, I got one contender for the week. I got one pretender. Okay, so where do we want to go this week? Who do we want to start with? Let's start with our pretender, the Buffalo Bills. Now, Bills fans, I feel like some of them know this. Like, if you're a realistic football fan, you're looking at this team, you're like, look, their record makes them look really good. Tristan, you've been leaving them out of your top 10 power rankings for how long? Why? And this is why. I remember saying this last week on the show. And if you tune in, you listen to the whole thing. I really appreciate you and I love you. If you got to this point in the show and you're still listening, you know what? You have all my love, right? All of it. But I said this last week on the show that if they beat the Eagles, mark my words, the Buffalo Bills will indeed be my power rankings. And what did the Buffalo Bills do? Ladies and gentlemen, what did they do? They lost. They lost 31-13 at home to an Eagles team that doesn't really have a secondary. The offense was sputtering. Josh Allen, his season stats so far, 9 passing touchdowns to 7 interceptions. So he's averaging about a touchdown, and he's averaging about an interception every game. So he's going to give you one. You're going to get one back, right? 1,500 passing yards, whatever. Bills need Josh Allen to throw smart and accurate passes. Now, Josh Allen's got a cannon. And I love watching him in-game, make some athletic runs, break some tackles. He's a big body guy. I actually like Josh Allen, and I'm rooting for Josh Allen, and I'm rooting for the Bills. In my lifetime, I want to see the Bills win a Super Bowl, right? This defense is great. That offense needs a lot of work, all right? Offense needs to absolutely score points. You can't expect to score only 13 points against an Eagles team and expect to beat them. You can't expect to score less than 20 points in today's NFL and beat a mediocre squad. You can't expect to score 16 points and beat the Lions. Okay? That's just something that needs to be stated. Now, I can't imagine how lucky the Bills got in the scheduling because I'm looking at the schedule. They're 5-2 up to this point. The biggest tests they've had have been the Eagles and the Patriots, right? The only two losses they have are the Eagles and the Patriots. Everybody else they've played, a lot of nothing. So the remaining games this week, they got Washington. That's going to be an easy W. The Redskins are horrible. The Cleveland Browns. Let's say the Browns are getting it back on track, right? Baker Mayfield makes some big plays. I think they score more points than the Bills do. Or they could absolutely not. But we'll say 50-50. I'm not going to give the Bills the benefit of the doubt here. All right? I'm going to say they lose to the Browns, right? Miami's awful. Give them a W. Don't care where they're playing. They could play Miami in Buffalo. They could play Miami at Hard Rock Stadium in Miami. They could play Miami at Lane Stadium here in Blacksburg. And they could beat them. It doesn't matter. They could play them in the parking lot, and they could beat them. The Denver Broncos, they're just a mess. I'm going to give the Bills the W there. Dallas is a good squad. They're 4-3. Their record doesn't show it, but I think Dallas is a good squad. They'd lose to Dallas in Dallas. Baltimore, good squad. They could score points. Their defense is solid. Give me the Ravens. At Pittsburgh, Pittsburgh's just not having a year. Give them a W against Pittsburgh. Loss at New England. And then the New York Jets, take the W. I think they finish this season around 10-6. They're going to make the playoffs, but I do not imagine this team to be a huge threat. I don't think the Bills are legit, and that's why they're my pretender of the week, and they're going to win a few more games. It's going to happen. Watch, they can end up at 11-5. If they beat the Browns, they're 11-5 on the year. And they could very well do it. And they're going to look like a really impressive team, but they haven't sold me on anything. That's what I'm waiting for. If you're a Buffalo Bill, sell me. Sell me on being a fan more than just rooting for them because they lost 4 Super Bowls before I was born. Okay? I feel like that's a solid agreement between me and Bills Mafia, if I'm not mistaken. Bills, you're the pretender of the week. Wear your hat of imaginary shame. Good for you. All right, look, the New Orleans Saints are my contender of the week. I've praised the Packers on this show a couple times. I've praised the Patriots. I've praised a few teams. I feel like I haven't done my due diligence in talking about this New Orleans Saints squad, all right? Because, look, Saints fans, I don't know if you were watching Sunday. Because if you weren't, you should have been. Drew Brees is back, baby. He's back. Get excited. 3 touchdowns versus the Cardinals. I think he had over 300 passing yards. Solid performance. He only threw like 1 interception. The Saints played really well, man. Drew Brees is ridiculously talented. He's great. And still playing with somewhat of a hurt thumb. As long as he could grip that football, man, he's slaying that thing everywhere. The defense is playing good football to support the offense. They're allowing like around 20 points a game, which is about as much as you can ask for if a little bit above average defense. Plus 3 turnover differential, so they're getting the ball and putting it in their offense's hands more often than not. 24 sacks in the season, so they're getting to the quarterback, and a 32% third down conversion rate. On 100 third down plays, this defense has only allowed 32 of them. I feel like that's impressive. Look, and they got the best wide receiver in football right now, all right? You could say Odell Beckham's super talented. You could say, who could you put out there that's better than Michael Thomas? Or you could argue Stephon Diggs ain't better. I know for a fact Odell Beckham isn't. Julian Edelman's having a really good year, but he's not better than Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas is the best wide receiver in football this season, bar none. 73 receptions, 875 receiving yards, and 4 touchdowns so far. Those are really good numbers. If he had like 2 more touchdowns, we'd be calling this guy, we'd be having him in like the MVP conversation. He's playing lights out, really good football. And the Saints have everything you need to be a Super Bowl contender. Mark my words, they got a good coach, they got a good quarterback, they got a running back in Alvin Kamara that when he gets back, their running game's going to get even better. They looked good with Latavius Murray on Sunday. The offensive line's good. They got a pass rush. The secondary's solid. Like, the only thing that's going to hurt them is maybe linebackers, but I like Demario Davis too. The only thing that could hurt him maybe is like, Will Lutz's inconsistency kicking, but he's really not a bad kicker either. There's something about this Saints team that I don't think is at least average, right? The remaining opponents, by the way, I think they could absolutely smoke their opponents. Right now, the Saints are 7-1. On the horizon, I'm looking at all these opponents. They got Atlanta in New Orleans. That's a W. The Falcons look bad this year. Dan Quinn's not going to be there after the season, I don't feel. And if he is, it's going to be a miracle. Tampa Bay in Tampa. Tampa's not consistent. Give them a W. Carolina in New Orleans. Give them a W. Atlanta in Atlanta. I don't care if they're playing in the studio parking lot. They're not beating the Saints. San Francisco, I think the 49ers could be the only team on their schedule remaining that could beat them. And it's going to be in San Francisco. If this was in New Orleans, give it to New Orleans. That's going to be a good game. And as long as the Niners stay healthy, as long as both these teams stay healthy, mark my words, it'll be one of the best matchups of the season. Indianapolis is good, but they don't have enough to stop the Saints. The Titans, of course not. And the Carolina Panthers, again, in Carolina, can't stop anybody. That defense will be good. I think at worst, they lose 2 of those next games. The worst case scenario I see here is they finish maybe 12-4. I think they're probably going to finish 14-2. They'll be the best team in football by the end of the season. Because I can't imagine the Niners are going to hold on to an undefeated season. Okay? And they'll probably drop like maybe 4 or 5 by the end of the year. I think they're going to sputter a little bit. That's not me hating. That's just me saying, look, like the Niners are good, but you're not going to go undefeated. I don't think the Patriots are going undefeated. No one's going undefeated this year, although there have been some teams that have started off hot, like these New Orleans Saints, and they're good. They're a contender. They're one of my Super Bowl legitimate picks. I will not be surprised if we see the New Orleans Saints wearing the patches in February, man. They're going to be good, and they're going to be there, and they're going to be in your face, and Saints Nation's going to be loud. They're going to be rocking. I'm excited to see what this Saints team does next, as long as they stay healthy. I mean, heck, even if they don't, they got Teddy Bridgewater backing them up, and Bridgewater doesn't look bad either. I've heard reports saying that he could very well get $20 to $30 million from a team that's desperate in this offseason for a quarterback. So the contenders are the Saints, and the absolute pretenders right now are the Buffalo Bills. Mark my words. It's time to get into the power rankings, ladies and gentlemen. The top 10 teams from 10 to 1. We're going to run through them all because you deserve it, okay? This is your Thursday night preview. Going into your football weekend. You got Thursday night football. You got your Friday night football. If you like your high school football teams, you got your Saturday NCAA. Oh, man, you got college football. You got Sunday, all your Sunday NFL games. Then you got your Monday night football. It's the football weekend, ladies and gentlemen. It starts on a Thursday. I like the way that sounds. And it ends on a Monday. It's awesome. Football's my favorite thing. Favorite time of the year. I enjoy fall. Fall's my favorite season. You know why? Because we got football, baby. All right, look. Power rankings. The number 10 team on this list, because they impressed me, are the Kansas City Chiefs. Look, this team just came off a loss to a good Packers team in Kansas City, right? I want to say it was in Kansas City. They were in Kansas City, no Patty Mahomes, and they barely lost to Aaron Rodgers. And no Devontae Adams. I'm not going to consider that even close because I think Mahomes is he's probably going to put up at least 2 more touchdowns, right? So they made Matt Moore look decent. They kept it close, and the Chiefs deserve some recognition for that. The defense is all right. They're pretty solid. They can make some plays. I don't think the Chiefs' defense is as bad as it was last year. I don't think it's leaps and bounds better. I do like some of the additions. Of course, I like Tyrann Mathieu. I like Juan Thornhill coming out of UVA. I like Chris Jones on the defensive line. I think they made some good acquisitions. They're going to get better. The Chiefs, as soon as Mahomes is back, this team is shooting back up the power rankings list, okay? They're going to be in the playoffs mix. They're going to be a contender. Mark my words. But they're right now at number 10. Number 9. Talked about them earlier. And for right now, they're at number 9, the Houston Texans. Now, like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if I see this team slide. But right now, the Texans, they're solid. I mean, no J.J. Watt makes them drop on my board. But I still think they're better than 22 other teams in the NFL, at least right now. Okay, they got a rough patch of schedule ahead of them. They're probably going to slide into the playoffs. Who knows? But because the AFC is weird like that when it comes to the playoff time. But Texans are going to be in the mix, and right above them is their division opponent, the Indianapolis Colts. Colts are 5-2 on the season. I like Jacoby. Like I said, he's about average. The defense is better. The offense is good. I like T.Y. Hilton. I like Eric Ebron. I like Mac Wilson, Naheem Hines. The offensive line is ridiculous. I'm a big Quentin Nelson guy. I think he was one of the best players in that draft. And mind you, that was the same draft as Saquon Barkley. Number 7, the Minnesota Vikings. All right, the Lizzo song, New Man on the Minnesota Vikings. No, doesn't translate. Not a good joke. Whatever. We're moving on. The Minnesota Vikings are good. I like Stephon Diggs. They're probably going to get Thielen back very quickly. The defense is good. Xavier Rhodes has not been performing as highly as he has been in the past. I'm still a Rhodes fan. I liked him coming out of FSU. Harrison Smith's good. Anthony Barr's good. Eric Kendricks is good. Griffin. Daniil Hunter. Linval Joseph. They got a good defense. They have some good personnel out there. The offense, as long as Kirk Cousins is playing well, this team is good. That's basically all they need. The offensive line, if the offensive line is playing good, that means Kirk Cousins can play good. Okay? So the Minnesota Vikings, I like them at number 7. They got a pretty easy win over the Washington Redskins last week, but they're going to sit right at number 7 for me. Number 6, the Seattle Seahawks, 6-2. I don't think there's a lot of things wrong with this team. I think Russell Wilson is definitely what makes this offense click. Defense is good. I like Jadeveon Clowney. I'm a big fan of Bobby Wagner. I like that core they have at the front 7. This is a good team. I like the Seattle Seahawks. They're number 6 for me. Russell Wilson's playing MVP caliber football. DK Metcalf's looking solid. Tyler Lockett looks good. So put the Seahawks at 6 for me. I think they have that much better. I think Russell Wilson makes them that much better than the Vikings. Number 5, the Baltimore Ravens. They got that W over the Seahawks a couple weeks ago, and the Ravens are still a good team. They can run, they can ground and pound, and then they can drop some passes over the top to you, okay? And the defense isn't bad. They got a big Sunday Night Football matchup. They can try to topple the New England Patriots this upcoming Sunday night. Don't be shocked, okay? Don't be shocked. Number 4, the Green Bay Packers, 7-1. 7-1, the Green Bay Packers. Look, Aaron Rodgers I feel like Aaron Rodgers is playing MVP caliber football, okay? The dude's got MVPs. He's got the awards. He's got all the arm talent in the world. I like Aaron Rodgers. No Devontae Adams for the last few weeks, and they've continued to win. They're getting him back this week. I'm sure he's going to have somewhat of limited snaps coming off of a turf thing, or turf toe, excuse me. But I like the Packers. I still like the defense. They got a good young secondary. They got some good young outside edge rushers. Packers are good. Put them at number 4. Number 3, like I said, Drew Brees just got back. Put the Saints at 3. I went through this entire thing with the Contenders segment. Just scoot that bar back a little bit, all right? See it. Just scoot it back. Scoot it back. Whatever. This way. Yeah, scoot it on back a little bit. You'll see why I like the Saints at 3. Number 2, the San Francisco 49ers are legitimate, ladies and gentlemen. They just smacked the Carolina Panthers, and it was ugly. I'm sure if you're a person on social media, you saw this one going around. Gerald McCoy talking about, we want all the smoke. We want it all. We want to see if these boys are for real. And they got mollywopped by the 49ers, all right? Look, the Niners are good. Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't have to do a ton to make this offense successful. The defense is ridiculous, man. Nick Bosa is an early defensive rookie of the year candidate. I like Richard Sherman. I think what they're doing in the secondary is good. That front 7's ridiculous. Solomon Thomas, Eric Armstead, DeForest Buckner, and Bosa. They got a good front 4. Quan Alexander, D Ford at the linebacker spots, and Warner. I like what they got going there. And secondary, they're good. They're good. All right, look, the New England Patriots are my number one squad in the power rankings, okay? I'm sure you saw this coming. You could just do the process of elimination. You guys are a smart audience. I believe in you. But look, this Patriots defense has more touchdowns than the opposing offenses do passing and rushing. The Browns look like they had their best shot at pulling like a long run for a touchdown against them, and Jonathan Jones came up and smacked the ball out of Nick Chubb's hands for his second fumble of the first quarter. Look, the Patriots defense, the boogeyman defense, this is a big test. This is the biggest test they got this upcoming Sunday, but I believe that this defense is good. They're legit. They're the real deal. I like what they're doing. The Patriots offense is only going to keep getting better. I think that as soon as they hit their bye week, too, they're going to have a lot more time to flesh things out, get more comfortable. I like the Mohamed Sanu pickup. Julian Edelman's balling out. I wouldn't even really say under the radar, but he's a veteran, older receiver. I don't think the expectation was this high for him. Yeah, the Patriots are playing good football. The offensive line needs to be better. I'm going to say that very loud and clear. They need to be better on the offensive line. Marshall Newhouse isn't working out. I think they're very excited to eventually get Isaiah Wynn back off of IR. They got N'Keal Harry off IR. He's going to be playing at some point in the next couple weeks. I like what the Patriots are doing. Tom Brady is still Tom Brady. That means you always are in the fight, but this defense is what's really setting them apart right now. That cover zero blitz is destroying offenses. Biggest test this week, though, they got Lamar Jackson up against them. So they're having a little bit of trouble defending the run. We saw that against Cleveland. I like what the Patriots are doing, though. Put them at number one. Now, my fantasy owners. Look, fantasy owners, it's a quick segment for you guys. I'm going to tell you who you need to cop. That means pick them up, start them, do what you got to do, put them in your lineup, or you got to drop them, bench them, just find some alternative, whatever you need to do. But I just wouldn't start them this week, okay? Look. If you're going to cop anybody this week, it's wide receiver week in the cop or drop, all right? Look, in the cop section, cop Kenny Golladay, man. If you aren't starting him, you're ridiculous because he's playing good football. But look, I think this is an especially good week to be Kenny Golladay. The Oakland defense didn't get any better by losing Garyon Conley. Jonathan Abrams, solid. I like what he does, but I don't think that him by himself is going to be enough to overtake Kenny Golladay and his ridiculously long arms. He's got some really good field awareness, knows where the sideline is at all times. He's long, lanky, he's long, but he's definitely a stronger wide receiver. I like Kenny Golladay versus the Raiders. DJ Chark, man, I think he's made this a couple times on the cops list. Fantasy owners of DJ Chark know this. The dude picks up yards in an instant. Versus Houston, they're giving up the most points to wide receivers this season. DJ Chark's an automatic start for me. He's on my team, and I'm benefiting from it. Tyler Lockett versus Tampa Bay. I just don't know who's in that Tampa Bay secondary, really. I mean, they got Vernon Hargraves and Brent Grimes as long as he's still playing. I like Tyler Lockett a lot. He's fast. He knows how to get open. Russell Wilson's favorite target. Give me Tyler Lockett. I think he could have a very big day against Tampa Bay. I think them losing Justin Britt, it's going to hurt, but Russell Wilson hurts a lot more. Drop him. Put him on your bench. Like I said, let's get into that half of the segment. Carson Wentz versus Chicago's defense. Look, the offense for Chicago might be some straight-up garbage, some hot garbage, some wet and disgusting trash, but that defense is still legit. I like Khalil Mack. The offensive line for the Eagles is not up to standard to play against this defense. Give me Khalil Mack. Give me Eddie Jackson. Give me Kyle Fuller. Give me Roquan Smith, Leonard Floyd, Noakeem Hicks. Even still, this defense is good. I would like to drop Carson Wentz if I was a fantasy owner. I'd pick up somebody else. I'd try to make a trade, something. But Chicago's defense is scary. And speaking of scary, Scary Terry is next on my drop list. Look, Buffalo's defense, like I said earlier, it's legit. I like Tre'Davious White. I like Micah Hyde. They got some good players back there in that secondary. The defense is legit. I think they're going to get after the opposing quarterbacks. They're going to get after Dwayne Haskins or Case Keenum or Colt McCoy, whoever the heck they're starting in Washington. Buffalo likely coming out with the W there. We'll get into our picks here shortly. But look, Scary Terry, I don't imagine he's having a very big game. Kyle Allen versus Tennessee. Look, I think the Niners exposed Kyle Allen. They rattled his confidence. I always try to give the benefit of the doubt to these guys that don't get a lot of opportunities, but Tennessee's got a good defense. They got Jarrell Casey. They got Cameron Wake. They got Harold Landry. I like Harold Landry a lot. And the secondary's good. I like Logan Ryan, Malcolm Butler, Kevin Byard, and Kenny Vaccaro. So imagine Kyle Allen's going to make a few mistakes. Could very well drop the game for them. I think it's going to be a lot closer. Now, like I said, let's move into picks. And I want to say something. I got a lot of pride in my picks from last week. Your boy went 14-0 on his picks last week. Mark it down. Check it out. If you don't believe me, check out the show. It was posted on Thursday last week, okay? I made my picks. I went perfect. 14-0, baby. Take it to Vegas. I should have, man. I could have made some money. Last week, 14-0. I'm pretty confident going into this week. The week prior went 10-4. My first week back into doing the shows, not a successful look. 5-9, right? Everybody has those weeks. I think that was just a weird week for me to not make it happen. But look, 14-0, perfect week last week. I'm going to keep it going, hopefully. I don't expect to go perfect this week, though. Thursday Night Football, I don't think it's going to be close, man. San Francisco at the Arizona Cardinals. Give me San Fran, man. Don't even joke around with me. I like Arizona. I like Kyler Murray. I like Patrick Peterson. I like Chandler Jones. But, man, San Francisco's defense is just so good. Imagining my breakout player for the week would probably be Nick Bosa. Again, he's talented, man. Them Bosa boys eat up quarterbacks for breakfast. Sunday's games, the Sunday slate. We're going to start off with Houston at Jacksonville. I said earlier, I think the Texans could lose at Jacksonville. I'm going to stick to my guns here. I think it's going to be a big day for the wide receivers for Jacksonville, Keelan Cole, D.D. Westbrook, DJ Chark. Leonard Fournette's playing good football. I don't know if you guys have been paying that much attention to Jacksonville outside of the mustache himself, Gardner Minshew. But give me the Jacksonville Jaguars against the Houston Texans, okay? Chicago at Philadelphia. The Bears' defense is good. I said this a little bit ago, but the offense is some legit garbage, man. Give me Philadelphia just because I think they'll put up enough points to wash over Chicago. Minnesota at Kansas City. Look, they did a good job with Moore. Kansas City's solid. I like their coaching, but I like Minnesota a lot more right now, man. Give me Minnesota at Kansas City. I'm sorry they're going to drop a few at home without Patty Mahomes, but yeah, give me Minnesota. I just think they're a better overall squad right now. Indianapolis at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's bad. Indianapolis is pretty good. Give me Indianapolis. I think that's all that needs to be said there. The New York Jets at the Miami Dolphins. Look, these are two bad teams. The Dolphins played the Steelers on Monday Night Football. They got the Jets this week. The Jets just unloaded Leonard Williams. I think the Jets probably going to win this game even still. I think they're just a little bit more stable, funny enough to say that, than the Miami Dolphins. So this is not going to be a fun matchup. I don't know. I could also see Miami getting the first win of the season this week, but I have more confidence in the Jets than I do in the Dolphins. So give me the Jets. The Washington Redskins at the Buffalo Bills. I don't think this is much of a contest. Scary Terry's not going to do much. We have no idea who's even playing quarterback for the Washington Redskins this week. At least I don't, man. They're all over the place. I've seen Dwayne Haskins play in 2 games, and who knows? He might start this week. So Buffalo taking them all the way. All right, Tennessee at Carolina. Look, I said Tennessee's got a good pass rush. I think they can make Kyle Allen make some mistakes, but man, Christian McCaffrey, that boy's good. He's real good. Fantasy owners know that. So give me the Carolina Panthers and their defense to overtake the terrible Tennessee Titans offense. Detroit at Oakland. Okay, Oakland's not that great. Detroit, they always feel like they have something to prove. Give me Detroit. Give me Kenny Golladay. Give me Matthew Stafford. No Kerryon Johnson. Give me Marvin Jones and Matt Patricia's defense. I like Detroit a little bit better, even though it's in Oakland. I mean, that just means it's going to be nice weather. Tampa Bay at Seattle. I mean, I don't know. This shouldn't even be I think this could end up being closer than it needs to be, but give me Seattle. Green Bay at the LA Chargers. The Chargers, like I said, they're a good team on paper, but Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers, baby. That man's got some arm talent. So give me the Packers, even though they're basically, it could end up being another home game, man. The Chargers fans, I don't know if they exist. Cleveland at the Denver Broncos. Mile High Stadium's going to be rocking and rolling, but Joe Flacco is not going to be suiting up, and I think that's going to be the big difference is quarterback play. Cleveland might not be that great, but Denver looks even more tumultuous. Give me Cleveland. Sunday Night Football matchup. This is gonna be a really good game, honestly. I'm a Patriots fan. I'm gonna be very honest with you. I'm wearing my fandom on my sleeve. I'm a Boston sports fan. All right, this is gonna be a good matchup. It's gonna be a very good matchup. And as a Patriots fan, I'm looking at this Baltimore Ravens team, and I'm a little scared. But I'm a have to go with the Patriots. It's so hard to root against them. It's gonna be Sunday Night Football. The lights are gonna be on. Baltimore can run the heck out of the ball, but I think it really just comes down to how well this defense adapts, because they know they're going to be going in, they're going to be running. I'm taking the Patriots, man. Sorry. I wouldn't be shocked if this is the first loss of the season, though. Okay? I'm not trying to walk back my pick, but I am saying the Patriots are going to win, but don't be shocked if Baltimore takes the W at home. Under the lights, Sunday Night Football. Baltimore gives them trouble typically. Monday Night Football, to round out the picks of the week. This isn't going to be that great of a game, but I love Saquon Barkley. I like Danny Dimes. But the Dallas Cowboys are just better across the board, man. The only thing that the only thing the Giants have that is probably better than the Cowboys at is you could really argue this close. I think they just play differently. I like Saquon more than I like Zeke personally. That's just a personal preference. I watch Zeke play. He's a ground and pound guy. I like Ezekiel Elliott. I watch Saquon play, man. He's a freak. That's really all you can say. So thank you all so much for watching this week's show. Be sure to like, comment if you have anything you want to disagree with me on. Comment, share, subscribe, get the bell on so you know exactly when I'm dropping a new show every week. And let's hit that outro, baby. Take it easy, guys. See you next week.